Welcome to Goobertown Hobbies. My name is Brent. There have been 10 editions of Warhammer 40k and 8 distinct starter boxes. Each one of those boxes has become legendary. In today's video, we're going to look at these classic models, and we're going to paint every female miniature from the starter sets of every edition of Warhammer 40k. Let's start from the beginning. 1987, Rogue Trader. This can be referred to as First Edition 40k. This book is a mythical artifact, but the edition did not have a starter box in the way that the other editions did. Moving on, next up is 2nd edition. Now this is a starter box. 20 Imperial Space Marines versus 20 Space Orcs and 40 Gretchen. These plastic minis from 1994 are iconic, and a lot of gamers feel a deep attachment to these guys. Some of the angriest comments I've ever seen on my YouTube channel were from the time I conducted durability tests on the Gretchen, and then later, I caught some heat when I went fishing with the Space Marine Sergeant. Millions of Gretchen and Space Marines have been manufactured, but only a few have truly lived. These aren't the oldest GW models, and they aren't the best, but they are fan favorites because they were part of this box. Anyway, Orcs and Goblins identify as da boys and da lads, so there are no ladies to paint on the greenskin side. As for Space Marines, their entire personality is based on who they are sons of and who they are brothers to. No girls allowed. Next up is 3rd edition. Somehow, I have the bottom half of a 2nd edition box and the top half of a 3rd edition box. Let me know if anyone out there has the opposite problem, and we can begin negotiations. Anyway, this box contained 20 Dark Eldar warriors, 10 Space Marines, and a Space Marine land speeder. This was released in 1998, right when my middle school friends and I were getting into the game. I played Dark Eldar, and I know these models very well. I've probably painted more of these than any other Warhammer model. Luckily, I still have a stash of bits so that we can build some fresh Dark Eldar warriors. This is my secret stash, my secret shame. Unlike the 2nd edition starter, this kit is modular. Legs, torsos, arms, and heads can all be mixed and matched. One of the 4 torso designs is distinctly female. The box had 5 copies of this torso. There are 2 heads without helmets. They're both a bit ambiguous, but I'm pretty sure that this one is supposed to be a lady. An evil elf lady. There are 4 sets of legs in the set. All of them appear to have a codpiece or an athletic protector, but that's a unisex fashion that never goes out of style. I built 5 warriors with breasts and 1 without. People come in all shapes and sizes, and I don't think boob plate is a requirement for female miniatures. This torso with the oval is one of my favorite bits of all time. I suspect that the sculptor intended it to be a male torso, but I think it works as a unisex bit of equipment. All in all, I'm gonna paint up 6 Dark Eldar ladies. I used my airbrush to get them primed, and then to add a base coat of purple. For the purple, I'm using 2 thin coats from Duncan Rhodes, thinned down with a bit of flow improver. I used the base purple from the Triad, and then I gave them a light dusting with the midtone. A classic scheme for these Dark Eldar is red armor with silver helmets. This is the first unit that I ever painted. Scab red, mithril silver, and black ink, and goblin green. When it was time to paint a second squad, I decided to make the armor lich purple. A few years ago, I revisited that red armor scheme, and this time I want to revisit the purple. Okay, check out this hair. What an absolute legend. Every sprue had one of these heads, and I have a lifetime supply. And here's the other head without a helmet. 25 years later, and I'm still not 100% sure what the gender identity was intended to be. It's probably a dude, but who knows? It's a fun bit, and we're using it. There are 4 different helmeted heads, and I used one of each. I also used one each of the 3 different helmet crest decorations. Hair, longer hair, and spikes. Painting these brings back a whole lot of memories that have been squirreled away in the back of my mind. These big starter boxes always leave a deep impression. For a while, these 2 factions are the face of the game. There used to be a store at the main mall called The Keep, and for years they had a demo board set up with Space Marines and Dark Eldar warriors. On the Warhammer Fantasy board, they had Bretonnians and Lizardmen. That's a moment in history forever crystallized in my mind. The factions from the starter box are the most common models that people own, and they're also the stars of demo games, painting tutorials, and all the rest. If you ask people when they first got into Warhammer, some folks will be able to give you an edition number, and some will be able to give you an exact year. But it seems that most people remember the contents of the starter box. The vast majority of demo games at events, at Warhammer stores, and at local retailers are done using the forces from the current starter, so a lot of people will remember playing their very first game with these minis. The minis from these giant edition starter boxes are produced in serious bulk, and for a few years these sculpts flood the market. Folks trade them, give them away, or sell them for cheap. Even if you didn't buy a particular starter box, you're still going to see a whole lot of those minis. So many copies of this warrior kit were made for the 3rd edition starter boxes that when I got back into the hobby 15 years later, it was still possible to find them for cheap on eBay. Hence my super secret stash of warrior bits. Anyway, I think these ladies are looking good. Now here's the real reason that I painted 6 of them. That is how many fit onto the sideboards of a raider. Alright ladies, let's go raiding. Oh, and of course the second faction in 3rd edition were Space Marines. My friend Alex painted this squad back when he was in middle school.
Are those your Space Marines?
These.
Are those your Space Marines?
Yeah,
Did you paint those Space Marines?
I painted the Space Marines, yeah. Oh shit.
This squad was entirely painted by Alex. Alex painted these minis. Next up, 4th edition, 2004, The Battle for Mcrag. The Space Marines are from the Ultramarine chapter, and this time they brought along a pilot model from the crashed spaceship. Space Marines continue to have a no girls allowed policy, and the pilot is a dude. The other faction is Tyranids, giant alien bugs. This is a cool faction. They don't do anything to balance out the sausage fest, but they're still fun models. Now look, I've been on the internet before, and I know that somebody in the comments is talking about genders of Tyranids. Okay, fine. Maybe this is a ladybug. I will acknowledge your point of view by giving this Tyranid Termagant a pink bow. Very stylish. Moving on, 2008 5th edition 40k, Assault on Black Reach. A classic match of Space Marine brothers against the Orc boys and the Orc lads. This box was an absolute classic, and I know a lot of people who loved it. I was off doing other things when 5th edition came out, but I still own some of the models. Once again, there are no women to paint, so let's move on. 6th edition in 2012 was this Dark Vengeance box, and 7th edition in 2014 had an updated version of this same set. This is Dark Angel Space Marines vs Chaos Space Marines. Dark Angels have a strict no girls allowed policy. Last year, I converted one of the Dark Angels models with a female head, but people in the comment section told me that was heretical. Happy Pride anyway. Now the 7th edition variant of Dark Vengeance was the box that was out when I got back into miniature games. I never bought it new, but I did find some Craigslist deals, and I think I actually have 2.5 copies of the Dark Angels side of this set. The contents of these starter boxes always flood the market. You can always find some secondhand Space Marines. In the Chaos faction, the Chaos Space Marines are all dudes. Now the Chaos cultists don't have a canonical reason to be all dudes, but they are all dudes. No female models in the 6th or 7th edition starter boxes. Moving right along, it's 2017 and we have the Dark Imperium. 8th edition brought big changes to Space Marines. That silly old Belisarius Call spent 10,000 years conducting research, and he figured out how to make Space Marines even better. Swap some organs in, swap some organs out, and we have the rebirth of the Adeptus Astartes. Instead of little dudes, now they're gonna be bigger dudes. Big cool dudes who like skulls and eagles and crosses. They couldn't figure out how to make female Space Marines though. That's still it's biologically impossible. Not possible. It's super duper important that no girls are allowed in the Space Marine treehouse. The other faction in Dark Imperium was Deathgard. No girls allowed for Chaos Space Marines either, but the kit also had a bunch of zombies called Poxwalkers. I don't think there are biological limitations on zombies, but the Poxwalker models are all dudes. My friend Alex from middle school painted up this Nurgle force, and he's gotten a lot better at painting. There are lots of super weird minis in this set, but because they were included in this set, they're all famous. 8th edition is around the time when Games Workshop really started to find their footing and amp up their release schedule. Oodles and oodles of minis have come out in the last 6 years, and it's getting hard to remember most of them. We remember the stuff from the big boxes though. We will remember you, Bell Dude. We'll remember you forever. Okay, next up, 2020, Indominus. 9th edition Warhammer 40k, here we come. I was excited for this set. The cinematic trailer was epic. It starts with a mixed gender unit of Imperial Guard fighting Necrons, but they're in trouble. And then, a Sister of Battle comes in to help, and she's like the main character of the trailer. And then, some Space Marines come in to help. And of course, inside the Indominus box there were no Imperial Guard, no Sisters of Battle, just Space Marines. The Indominus box was all dudes. Heck yeah, no girls allowed. Don't get me wrong, these are some nice Space Marines, but dang, the trailer gave a glimpse of a more interesting galaxy that never made it to the box, and never made it to that wide distribution. As for the Necrons, yeah, somebody is going to tell me that they're Lady Necrons. I don't know about that, but I acknowledge your point with this pink bow. And yet, this is not a model of a woman, this is a model of a robot. As far as representation goes, this represents a ripoff of the T-800 from Terminator. Terminator is a good movie though, and these are pretty cool models. Games Workshop made a bazillion copies of Indominus, and they sold very, very well. In addition to these big starter boxes, GW also makes smaller boxes at different price points using subsets of the same model lines. Whatever factions are included in the big starter are featured over and over again in products such as 40k Command Edition, the Recruit Edition, Fire Team, and paint kits. That's 3 years of robots and Space Marines saturating the hobby. I still wish that the Sisters of Battle had been the face of this edition, but they weren't. If you want to play Sisters of Battle, you gotta look harder for the models, and you gotta pay more to get them. Around this time, Age of Sigmar was really finding its groove with female models. The Stormcast Eternals have some outstanding characters that have been printed hundreds of thousands of times and included in a wide variety of starter sets. This pretty much brings us up to 2023 and the 10th edition of Warhammer 40k. 10th edition is launching with another massive box that we're gonna remember forever. Leviathan, Space Marines, and Tyranids. It seems like Games Workshop is selling more of these boxes than any other product that they've ever made. New bugs and new Space Marines are gonna be everywhere. Social media platforms are already overwhelmed with great content of these new minis being painted, and we're gonna see a whole lot more as folks have a chance to dive into this box. We've entered the next era of Space Marine painting videos and Space Marine Instagram. And here's the #1 rule of Space Marines: no girls allowed. Well dang, I really haven't had to do much painting in this video, have I? I think this one head and this one torso are literally the only bits in any starter set from any edition of Warhammer 40k that represent a humanoid female. Lordy, here she is, the perfect lady. The only woman to ever be a part of a 40k starter box. Well, I guess we have some extra time to decorate the bases. Okay, obviously there are 2 issues here. The first is that these big box releases have a massive impact on the culture and the economics of the entire hobby. It is impossible to overstate how important these boxes really are. Secondly, there's been almost no female representation in these starter kits. Now, I've been on the internet before, so I'm gonna rapid fire address the comment section. First and most important, if seeing or hearing the word female or the word woman has started someone on a misogynistic or transphobic rant, that person should probably turn off the internet for a bit, maybe go outside, and maybe do some introspection. Next, representation is a good thing. Having a wider variety of affordable minis to paint is a good thing. Giving more people a reason to give this hobby a look is a good thing. Potentially doubling the size of the player base would be a fantastic thing. Warhammer 40k is huge, and it's a common gateway into the hobbies of mini painting and tabletop wargaming. Whether or not we play 40k, we should want Games Workshop to be a good ambassador for these hobbies. I'm on record saying that the No Girls Allowed rule for Space Marines is deeply, deeply stupid. Bone deep stupid at a foundational level. A common response is that Sisters of Battle are a faction in 40k that has a No Boys Allowed rule. One faction of warrior nuns, and one faction of warrior monks. That seems reasonable, right? My criticism isn't that the game has an all-male faction. The issue is that Space Marines are the faction. They're the poster boys, and they are all boys. Space Marines were included in all 8 of these era-defining starter boxes. Sisters of Battle are still at 0. For Age of Sigmar, female Stormcast are included in the starter boxes. They're amazing figures, and they make the whole vibe of that game better. One last point. Somebody is probably typing the name of some obscure product and saying that it was a starter kit for Warhammer 40k. No, Eldritch Omens was not a starter kit. I don't care if it had a rule pamphlet. It was a limited edition battle box made to exploit FOMO. It had 0 impact, and everyone has completely forgotten about it. There have been 10 editions of Warhammer 40k and 8 big boxes. 2nd edition, 3rd edition, Battle for Mcrag, Assault on Blackreach, Dark Vengeance, Dark Imperium, Indominus, and Leviathan. Those are the legendary starter kits. They're classics, and they're foundational to the whole dang industry. And here she is, the one and only female model ever included in a starter set for Warhammer 40k. She looks great with that goblin green base. A lovely model from the late 1900s. Well, that's about it for this time. Thanks so much for watching.